Can you name a war that met all just war criteria? I think that's the very first question that we have to ask ourselves, because if we can, then we can begin to work from there. So maybe we think of World War II. We say, well, World War II was maybe a just war, huh? Well, we had 52 million people die in World War II, and 48% of those were civilians, right? Plus, we had 2 atomic bombs dropped upon Japanese civilian population centers, okay? By the standards of Christian just war, that is an unjust war. You may say, well, but the aggressor, but the injustice, yes, that's one of them, just cause. Maybe we had just cause, but you have to have all of the others. We understand this when it comes to the Old Testament laws as well. James even says, if you're going to keep one, you got to keep all of them. Okay, well, it's the same thing with just war theory. That's how it works. You don't just keep one, right? You got to keep all of them. So if you don't keep all of them, then you don't have a just war, and then the killing is murder. That's how it works. Otherwise, the just war theory has no integrity. It's just literally a shell game where we just cover up our murder somehow with pagan traditions. So if we're going to actually have integrity in this tradition, we have to keep all of them. The Christian church is the one who has told us that just war theory is the only way to justify killing when it comes to war. It's their own standard that they've adopted from pagans. And if they won't even require that the wars follow those criteria, then it has no integrity. So what about Vietnam, the Vietnam War? Well, there were 2 million civilians who died in the Vietnam War. 2 million civilians. More American soldiers committed suicide when they came home from Vietnam than died in the war because of the horrific atrocities that were committed in that country. Who thinks that Vietnam met all the criteria? Iraq. How about the war in Iraq? 1 million dead civilians. By every definition, the Iraq War was an act of unjust mass murder according to Christian just war theory. It doesn't matter what you do. You can burn people's face off. You can drop, nuclear bombs upon civilian population centers, and the Catholic bishops will still not come out and say you broke our just war tradition. There's no amount of killing, there's no amount of bloodshed that will cause the Catholic bishops to take a stand against these unjust wars. So it's a shell game. The same thing goes for Protestant pastors. When's the last time you heard a teaching on the unjust wars? When have you heard a Protestant preacher get up and say, we have been fighting unjust wars for decades? And what does that mean for the people who fight in those unjust wars? What does that mean for them? Can you name a war that met all the just war criteria? I challenge you. I implore you. Do you have a war that meets all the just war criteria? And remember, if any of these criteria fail to be met, then the war is unjust and the killing is murder. So has just war theory made a bunch of murderers out of Christians? It's a valid question.